Shut up and sit down.
Welcome one and all to HJBC coverage of the ChampCar iRacing series for 2020. As you can see, we're at round 10 and we are at Virginia International Raceway. Big thing you need to note here, this is a special length round, 2 hours in deference and homage to the VIR 24, the Lifeline Classic. We're going for just a little bit more racing than the normal rounds here. And this is a fantastic track for it. So I'm David Haynes, once again joined by Devin Peters. And Devin, I know this is a track you're quite well fond of, so I mean, tell us about it.
VIR's got to be one of the least appreciated gems of motor racing in the United States. Not only does it have a real long history, both as in its first form and then as its repaved form as we're seeing it today, but also a really challenging track and a track that takes some cojones if you want to get it right. We're going to see drivers pushing all over the place through this 2 hour race today, I think.
Right, as you mentioned that, Chris Knisley is pushing all over the place because qualifying is underway right now with just a couple of its dying minutes, about 2.5 minutes or so on the clock there before we get into that race. And of course, the format here, as always, as normal in the ChampCar iRacing series, a fixed setup, but we've given them a little bit more starting fuel because it is a longer race, but they are still going to require a pit stop for fuel somewhere in our 2 hour race. And with the length of the race, you would then assume that taking tyres is the easier thing to do than in the shorter length races. So that's what we're expecting to see for strategy. So this season, we are using a rotating cast of different vehicles. And this round, it is the 2010 Mazda MX-5 Cup car, well loved in its time, still quite enjoyed by our drivers. And I think it is a good mix of a little bit more power than the Pontiac Solstice, but just a little bit more fun across some of the exciting sections of this circuit, like roller coaster, like around Oak Tree, like up through the S's. It's just a little more balanced through those kind of areas, I think.
Yeah, and you can already see these drivers having to, get a pretty big slip angle as they slide their way down roller coaster through Hogpen there. These cars are a lot more work to get the speed out of than some of the other cars that we have in the series here. So it should be a real showcase of the guys who know what they're doing, putting in some fast lap times.
Yeah, so we were looking at Love Racing, trying to complete some laps there. I'm not sure it's quite worked out for them, but Nicholas Love's in third at the moment. Sean Saputra's in fifth. So they're definitely up there in our top five. That's a good starting position to help them maybe stay clean. Other drivers I can see out there still pushing for a lap. Christopher Flamian, Carlos Corredor. So there's a few drivers who've parked it now, but there's a few out there absolutely still pushing. So it looks rather busy around pit lane there. So the last minute just does appear that the drivers are on a lap now. Might get to finish them. I think Christopher Flamian fancies he might be able to improve. He's actually quite early in the lap at the minute, before the S's. So if this lap is allowed to stand because he started it before the time elapsed, then certainly right at the end of the session here is not a bad time, because we are using the time acceleration in iRacing so that we will race beginning at sunset through the dark and then finish at sunrise. Despite it only being a 2 hour race, we're going to speed up the sun, and that is again sort of paying respect to the 24-hour race this weekend. And note, that lap he was on is not going to be allowed to stand. We move straight to the grid, which looks as such. Alex Coffard is on the pole position ahead of your points leader, Alex Albert. Then Nicholas Love, as we mentioned, is in third position there for Love Racing. And alongside him, Max Lupfer, who won the round at... did he win the round at Coda? He put on a good show there. He's definitely had a race win already this season. So look for him to maybe go somewhere from fourth place. Fifth, Sean Saputra. Sixth, Justin Hall. Again, one of those drivers who came close to victory in motorsport and just couldn't quite seal the deal there, but he's going to start from 6th. Jay Sofianiak in 7th. Matthew Thompson in 8th. Paul Roddy in 9th there, and Andrew Kosick starting out of 10th.
Yeah, and we've got a few really good groups sort of all the way up and down the field. Starting with Andrew Kosick, we've got a group of guys that qualified right around 218. Chris Nicely in 11th, Aaron Nash in 12th, David Palermo in 13th, and Christopher Flamian in 14th all fall into that group. And then there's another little cluster in the 219s with Ernesto Carriosa and Carlos Corredor, as well as Aaron Thorpe all managing to fall into that piece of the field. And then finally in 18th place, we've got Camilo Carriosa, Scott Grinnell in 19th, William Corridor in 20th, Javier Pinzon in 21st, Kyle Fegley in 22nd, and Kerry Morris in 23rd.
Yeah, I'm seeing Florida have definitely made the trip up, because we've got 2 Carriosas and 2 Corridors in the grid here. So between those 2 family names, we've got 4 drivers padding out our grid here. So we'll see how they go, if they can get the strategy right. And as you can see, it's brightened up a little bit as we begin our pace lap since the end of qualifying. We're looking at probably about 3:30 or so in the afternoon simulated time, solar time, when we drop that green flag for our 2 hours of racing. And then we're going to, over the course of 2 hours, experience 16 hours of sun and solar movement. So we will race through the night, and the headlights on these cars are going to be very, very necessary, as they are in the Lifeline 24. And we are going to be treated to a beautiful sunrise before this race comes to a close.
Yeah, and suitably overcast out there. I can't remember the last time a VIR 24 went off without an excess of humidity at the very least, and if not, certainly some rain. So these guys will be getting the full experience driving through the dark night that is VIR, with its very limited track lighting, as well as sort of typical weather, one could say.
Indeed, I'm just keeping my eyes on the grid, and it looks like at least everyone in our top 6 has started from the grid. I was worried we were missing someone there, but we've got Alex Coffard and Alex Albert on the front row, and then behind them I think is some of our ones to watch here. Nicholas Love, I know, has been putting in the practice. He's very dedicated to this league and this series, and he's been putting out some of those videos and track guides that our other competitors have been enjoying and maybe stealing the notes from. So him starting out a 3rd, I know he's ready and prepared for this one. And Max Lupfer, again, I think has had some absolute flashes of speed and has converted that before as well. He's starting out of 4th. So I think it's looking pretty competitive all in our top 10.
Yeah, just about a second from 1st back to 5th place here today, but I really think that all of that can be accounted for by the draft as they head up the very long back straight here at VIR, that these little MCs tend to struggle up the hill a little bit, even at full throttle. So definitely a track where the draft is going to be a big factor, and we'll see if these guys can stick together as a group as we head towards roller coaster and eventually the green flag.
Yeah, indeed. Longest stints we're going to see in this 2-hour race. So I think also being able to look after the tyres a little bit more is going to be critical, on account of you're going to need them for at least the best part of an hour, instead of, maybe 40 minutes and then a 20-minute dash at the end of the 1-hour races. So the stints on the tyres are going to be longer. Track temperature is relatively warm at the minute, though cooling off by the second. So certainly there are some drivers who might be quick for a couple laps and then find they've worn the sheen off their tyres. So we've been treated to the full pace lap of this beautiful facility, and they are absolutely getting ready to go, gridding up, packing up, pairing up, and our Porsche safety car is about to pull onto the lane. The green flag drops. Alex Coffard, not quite yet. I've jumped the gun on that one. Alex Coffard's about to get going. And now I think that happens. We get the green flag and away we go. So good jump as you'd expect from the pole man in Alex Coffard. Alex Albert's on the outside here. Nicholas Love from the second row of the grid is now going to try and come down the inside at turn 1. He is on cold tyres, quite ginger on the brakes, and sensibly so in a 2-hour race.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of different angles to the guys that are, thinking about this longer race. Where do you really want to be when you know that you've got a very long time to spend in the draft before your first pit stop? So interesting to see how that plays out. Looks like we're getting through these first few corners cleanly, though. Guys are filing out.
Yeah, there's one or two drivers who dipped a tyre on the grass through left hook in NASCAR, but everyone appears to be still going, everyone who took the start of our 22 drivers. And of course, we talk about it every round. At the start of the race, your tyres are very cold. The car is very taily, very sketchy. And then by lap 2 or 3, you've got a little bit more confidence. So here, the drivers need to bring their braking markers, 50 feet earlier, be just a little bit more cautious of how they tip the car into the corners. So we're going to come around Oak Tree. And of course, the laser scanned version on iRacing still has the Oak Tree. We miss it.
Yeah, really
back straight.
Really gives some great character to that corner. It's a shame that it's not there anymore.
So, keeping an eye, I'm not sure what's happened to championship leader Alex Albert, but at the head of the field, Nicholas Love, Max Lupfer are right in the toe of Alex Coffard, and they are closing, bearing down on him. But are they going to be closing quick enough before they get to the braking zone of Roller Coaster, which is a difficult curved braking zone, and then you turn unsighted down the hill? And I think Max Lupfer had a little bit more confidence than Nicholas Love did. He's backed him up a little bit and given a tiny bit of breathing space to your leader. Behind them, a couple panels rubbing.
Yeah, and Crawford's got to love the sight of those guys fighting behind him, hoping that he can break away. No sign of Alex Albert, though, still. I wonder if he's run into some sort of connection issue.
It's the first thing I can think of there. I didn't see an issue, but indeed, these things can happen. Your service provider decides to do some maintenance. You have a power outage. Heaven forbid, a blue screen, something like that. So we did see a couple cars making contact there at Roller Coaster, but top 3, yeah. Max Lupfer's now under a bit of pressure as he's gone deep into turn 1, and Justin Hall finds himself in 3rd place.
Yeah, and we've actually just gotten the message: Alex Albert, receiver throughput unacceptable levels. That means disconnected. And from what we've heard, there's a big storm passing through his area, so that might be the last we see of him for this race.
Hope he's got a flashlight or some candles, if that is indeed the case. Very, very unfortunate, and I think a loss not just for him, but for us as spectators of this league, because we know he always gets the strategy right. He always comes through the field and makes a race of it. Now we've got to hope that Alex Coffard, Nicholas Love, Justin Hall, Max Lupfer can make this an exciting 2-hour race. And by all accounts here on lap 2, Nicholas Love has got a bit more confidence now underneath him, getting a bit closer to Alex Coffard, who's wiggly through the Oak Tree. And that is a difficult section of track as you come up the hill, turning, braking, navigating your way around the Oak Tree. So Coffard leading, Love in 2nd, and Justin Hall has a monster of a run on him, and I think he's going to take that 2 wide on their way to the Oak Tree. So Justin Hall just doing well in the point standings as well. He's just going to try and move himself into 2nd here, and that is how you want to make the moves on the way into Roller Coaster. It's got to be clean, because we've seen the lightest bit of contact there. Again, a corner where you're braking and turning on your way in can send you sailing off into the greenery, and there is plenty of greenery here in beautiful Virginia.
Yeah, on the bright side, it's probably drier than it usually is at the 24, but Justin Hall will definitely be smiling, moving from 4th place to 2nd after a couple successful passes this lap. And he'll also have the points in the back of his mind if Alex Albert is truly gone for this race, because Justin Hall is actually in 2nd place. And if Alex isn't here, this is a prime opportunity for him to make up some ground.
Speaking of making up ground, here comes Max Lupfer. He got too hot on the brakes into turn 1 a lap ago, but he nailed it to perfection this time, and Love drops back another spot into 4th.
Ooh.
Luther is going to try and go up through the field.
Yeah, and car number 6, Jay Sofianek, just had a bit of a drama there heading into turn number 1. I don't know if the replay cameras are up and ready yet, but
tell us precisely what you saw, and we're going to get the cameras of it here.
Yeah, well, it looks like he just pushed his braking a little bit deep, 2 tires off on the grass, got loose, snapped back across the nose of a couple of oncoming competitors, managed to avoid all but a little bit of contact, but definitely a brown pants moment 11 minutes into a 2-hour race.
So the mayonnaise car of Christopher Flamion coming through there also avoid any incidents. He didn't get the qualifying he wanted because they dropped the checkered flag on him earlier than he would have rathered. But he's, so far I can see, our big mover up 7 spots from 14th into 7th. So I guess keep an eye on him deeper into the race as well, because he's picking them off one by one, and he's obviously got quite a bit of confidence in the car right now. So maybe he's one who can get up there into the top 5, make some fight of it as well. At the front, though, where I've got my eyes, Justin Hall always getting a great run out of Oak Tree, making the most of the draft and the tow down that very long back straight. And it feels very long when you've got less than 200 horsepower under your right foot. Is he close enough for the move this time? He thought about it, but Koffard just had enough ahead, just covered him off there. And our top 4 cars are covered by about a second here as they sort of concertina up there. Koffard leading, Hall menacing, towing Max Lupfer along with him, and Nicholas Love keeping it calm and within bounds. He'll definitely stay with the lead if he just makes no mistakes and uses the tow.
Yeah, and Christopher Flamion was able to keep on moving up the field there, executing a nice little pass on Paul Roddy, another regular of the series, down the back straightaway. And he's going to be looking ahead of him, trying to dream of a way to catch up to those guys that are, now about 7 seconds ahead of him in the lead pack. But all it takes is one little overtake attempt, and those guys will be pushed back in his general direction.
Elbows out for Max Lupfer here, through into second, and now he's still going side by side with Alex Koffard for the lead. So wasting no time trying to set up a move down the inside here. He has played Alex Koffard like a fiddle there, set up an over-under, and he goes from 3rd into 1st. In the first sector of the lap, Max Lupfer, I'm not sure if he's trying to conserve those tyres in this longer run right now. He's trying to get to the lead, and he's done it very, very cleanly.
Yeah, and I don't know if Koffard had recollection of a few incidents that Team Huge Ass had in the past in that corner. I believe there was a Mustang once that put a pretty nice dent on their NA Miata in the past. But anyways, he gave them a lot of space to make that room work. But that makes sense, only a few minutes into this longer race. No sense in getting too feisty, especially if someone's really in a hurry behind you.
Yeah, that is a sensible way to approach it less than 10 minutes into a 2-hour race, knowing that all the effects of strategy are going to be amplified. They're going to need to take basically twice as much fuel. They're going to wear the tires down basically twice as much. So if you can, 2nd, 3rd, 4th in the lead pack here, look after your tires a little bit, save a little bit of fuel, then that's going to pay double the dividends it normally would in a 1-hour race. And you can see from some of the longer shots here, Sean Saputra, it's not really a tongue twister, but there I go tripping over it in the early morning here in Brisbane, Australia. He's definitely trying to keep with the top 4 as well here. He's not let them get away by too much. So again, knowing you can lose 3 or 5 seconds easily with a sloppy pit stop, he's still just not out of this yet. Same too for Paul Roddy, Christopher Flamion, and Matthew Thompson. So yeah, keep an eye on this one to simmer and maybe come to a boil later on.
Yeah, and Saputra does keep taking chunks out of them. This time by the line, he's dropped it from about 5 seconds down to 4.2, I think.
Yeah, he... actually, the most recent lap there maybe wasn't his cleanest, but overall he's been doing pretty well. Maybe just trying to use those tyres now to get to the pack so he doesn't have to just continue to see them slip away and out of his grasp. Lupfer is doing well at the head of the field. He's got a couple car lengths from Koffard, Hall, and Love, who I think are just now, everyone will have their tyres warmed up and to temperature. And so they can just settle into their rhythm here. And I feel like that's what they might do until around about the pit stops. So what about Paul Roddy in 6th and the train he's leading? Has he got his conductor's hat on?
Yeah, after Chris Flamian passed him up the back straight a couple laps ago, Paul Roddy was able to make a move back on Chris in turn 1, and that's been status quo ever since. Paul Roddy, an experienced driver, racing, I believe, a 98 BMW in the Real ChampCar series, something like that. And certainly knows his way around VIR. I don't think Chris has any laps here, and I'm not sure about Matthew Thompson.
But Flamian's got laps here. He drove with Racebar last year.
There you go.
I think. I'm pretty confident. Oh, a bit of a bump draft for 2nd. Justin Hall is keeping Alex Coffard moving down the straight in their pursuit of Max Lupfer at the lead. I'd be careful doing that with these cars. And I know bump drafting, bit of a contentious issue sometimes in ChampCar. But it doesn't look like either of them have picked up much damage. And these cars are both pretty strong. And you do have that fast repair spare car available. Lupfer's in the grass. He's gone too wide at Hog Pen. There is no grip whatsoever out there. He's going to drop back to at least 4th. And he is pushed on, but pushed too hard. And that has cost him a handful of time. No damage. He held onto it, but he was doing so well, so strong at the lead. Here's the replay. He just doesn't quite catch the curb at the apex as he'd wanted. Pushed out onto the grass and easily done, but costly considering how hard he'd fought to get to the front of the pack, try and break away. He's back where he was after lap 1.
And you can really tell how hard these guys are working around these corners. These cars are constantly unsettled when you're driving them. Just sort of a quirk of the way they're set up, but they're really working and sliding around. And we're actually starting to see a pretty strong battle develop here. Chris Flamian's made his way past Paul T. Roddy again for 6th and 7th place, but actually behind him, Matthew Thompson makes contact with Paul T. Roddy, and that's a real shame. Made contact with Paul in turn 1, and then again coming on a NASCAR there, and yeah, Paul's caught the edge of the tire barrier, but that car doesn't look like it's driving super straight. I think that he'll have to make a very, very early pit stop here, which might extinguish his dreams of a top 5.
Yeah, that's unfortunately not looking so good. Wasn't fast impact, but he's caught the left rear quarter on the edge of the tire barrier there, and that's always going to throw out your suspension, throw out your alignment, maybe break something. So he is dropping positions here, letting people through, and that is unfortunate. And I gotta wonder, for this 2-hour race, when does the pit window actually open? Because they have the full capacity of the fuel tank, but I'm just not quite sure these cars can go 1 hour and 3/4. If it was 1 hour 20 minutes you were asking, you could probably pit then and safely get to the end. But I worry this is either going to be a retirement for Paul Roddy or force him into a 2-stop race.
Yeah, certainly a 2-stop. I mean, this early in the race, you can't give up on it yet. Obviously a lot of action yet to come, and if these guys at the front are going to be as glued together and pushing as hard as they are, one's got to think that at some point someone's going to make a mistake. So still some opportunities for him to get back, but yeah, that's a real heartbreaker for a guy that I know loves this track and loves racing with this series.
And then also the contact was on a couple corners of the car, which just amplifies your chances of actually damaging something. At the lead, Justin Hall, nose in front of Alex Coffard, grabs the spot. Where is that? Is that coming into roller? No, it's coming into turn 1. I was looking at the damaged car, and as I've brought my eyes here, Justin Hall's had a good run out of Hog Pen to turn 1 down the inside very cleanly on Alex Coffard. And again, these guys know it's a long race, and you can kind of tell they're driving like that. Nicholas Love still with them. Max Loop for 3 or so seconds off the back of the train could definitely still catch them. So Justin Hall has now decided he wants the lead of the race, and it is 3 cars up front.
And just from the attitude of the cars, you can tell that Max Lufa is really, really pushing to get it back up there. Out of every single corner, he's sideways and drifting over the curbs and stuff like that. So hopefully he's able to find enough consistency to catch those guys back up at the front and make it a 4-car battle. Sean Sputra, on the other hand, has kind of lost some of the speed that we were seeing at the start of the race. I don't see any damage on the car, so it's possible that he's just got those tires kind of cooking. Either way, we are also seeing another interesting phenomenon here at about 5:45 solar time. The clouds are breaking up in a few spots around the track, and we're actually starting to see some direct sunlight. So that might serve to warm up the track just a little bit before we get down to the darkest part of our race.
Yep, variable weather here, and varying it is. So we had, I think it was Justin Hall pushing Alex Coffard not long ago. Nicholas Love is not quite so keen on pushing Coffard along and towards the lead. There was a respectful maybe 1 foot between their bumpers there coming down the back straight, but nonetheless, Alex Coffard, of course, still caught Justin Hall, bunch of car lengths using that toe down the back straight. And of course, you mentioned this, I think it comes on doubly strong once you start going uphill on the back straight there. You're almost at the terminal velocity of these cars. So at that point, the slipstream, that toe, the draft, very good.
Well, yeah, and you're at the terminal velocity for so long. Like that back straight, it's got to be close to 15 seconds that you're nearly on the limiter in fifth gear. So it's a real demanding track in real life, and in the sim, it's real demanding on the guys that are drafting and passing. And we've actually just had one of those as Jay Sofianek down in, I want to say 8th place, has managed to put a move on Carlos Corridor up the back straight, and now through Hogpen he's holding that lead. So we'll see. Of course, Sofianek had that little issue about 5 laps ago going into turn 1 where he put the car a little bit sideways, but he's managing a little bit of a recovery here as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on battles all the way through the field throughout this race.
Yeah, we've sort of got 3 good packs going on at the minute. Of course, there's at the lead. There's at we're looking at here with Sofianek trying to move his way up a little bit, and then we're just sort of broken up the Christopher Flamion train because Aaron Nash went for the move on him into turn 1, pushed a bit too wide, and then dropped back behind Chris Flamion and Matthew Thompson. This allowed Flamion to break away a little bit. But Aaron Nash is not disheartened whatsoever, and he is right up behind Thompson trying to get that done.
Yeah, riding real close up there. But I got to think that Matthew Thompson's suffering a little bit from top speed as we see a move going on there. That looks like Thompson trying to defend, and I've tried that move around the outside going into the first part of Oak Tree there, and it is sketchy at the best of times. One little tap can send you flying out towards the guardrail. So brave move on Aaron Nash's part, and it looks like he's getting maybe a little bit of a side draft, certainly a better run, and with this very long back straightaway, there's a good chance he'll be able to, at the very least, get 3/4 of the way ahead of Matthew Thompson before the next corner.
Yeah, and you can see the tweak on the back right of the car in the rear for Matthew Thompson. Don't know exactly how much that's affecting him. You know, a little scrape on the bumper isn't going to hurt you, but that is maybe a little more sizable. Might just, as you say, be taking a tiny bit off his straight line speed, which of course would always help Aaron Nash complete the move and get in position to do so. So Nash is now up into 7th. That's 5 positions gained for him. He's still not beating the record here of +8 for Chris Flamion, who's just up the road from them, trying to break that toe, I would feel.
Yeah, and that little battle has cost them about 2 seconds on Chris Flamion. So Aaron Nash is going to have to put in some real consistent laps here to get back up there. Though Flamion ran a little bit wide into turn 1 that time, so he might get his wish.
And we mentioned the front tires beginning to wear longer into these runs, and I'm certainly maybe seeing that from a few of our drivers. They need to bring the braking a little bit earlier and not be carrying quite so much brake as they start to turn in to the corners, especially those long ones like turn 1. I mean, you just see the difference in the attitude and behavior of the cars from lap 1, where the rear is cold and the car is very pointy, very aggressive, to later into these runs where you just need to be very careful about how much speed you're carrying into the corners, lest you just scrub the front all the way.
Yeah, we are starting to see some pretty significant changes on the temperature, though. I think we're down about 8 degrees since the start of the race, with the air temperature now being reported around 79 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that we only simulate down to 72 degrees Fahrenheit in the sim here. So it is likely that we will reach the bottom of the temperature scale in the race here today.
Got to get a little bit more climate data for iRacing, because you know that the summer evenings here don't cool off very much, if any, at all.
Yeah, I've been sweating at 2 in the morning on the pit lane here, so yeah, I can vouch for the fact that it's certainly a little bit warmer on your average VIR weekend, but nonetheless, plenty humid.
Ready to the race here in the ChampCar iRacing Series Round 10 from VIR. Still Justin Hall from Alex Coffard and Nicholas Love just in a good spot, saving fuel, saving a bit of tyres, not losing touch whatsoever with the lead of the race. And on this lap, they were just a 10th faster than Max Lupfer in fourth, who's trying as he can to catch them, but just hasn't made any big inroads out of our top three. So that, as the laps go on, that mistake for Lupfer just looks more and more costly. Still a long way to go, I must say, but he'd want to be part of, the lead pack right now, and he's not. He's a tantalizing 3 seconds away from them.
Yeah, and the difference in draft is going to be the biggest thing, not just on the individual laps as they tick by, but also on the amount of fuel that he's able to save. And I got to say, Nicholas Love has seen Alex Cofford make a few mistakes through the last few corners, but he hasn't made a move on him. And I really think that Love is playing this smart, trying to save some fuel through this section of the race, so that at the pit stop he can come out 2, 3. Maybe even 4 or 5 seconds ahead, knowing how slow these NCs are to fuel once they get in the pit lane. Not quite the 5 minutes that we see in real ChampCar, but not that far off either.
Yeah, indeed. And then another thing, just to keep in mind, is some of the other races we've had, the fuel fills quicker than the tyres change. So everyone who's taking tyres has just about the same pit stop time. Here, they're going to need to take quite a bit more fuel. The fuel is definitely going to be the deciding factor on the pit stop time, not taking tyres. So you're going to take tyres at your stop if you know, and it's still, those tyres are going to be done and they're still going to be waiting on that fuel. So you're very well correct.
People making moves. Chris Flamion is right on Aaron Nash's bumper, and we've actually had Aaron Nash manage to overtake Chris Flamion, and he backs them all up into the top of the roller coaster there, and everyone keeps it clean. But that's an overtake for position there. Aaron Nash grabbing 6th place away from Chris Flamion, and 2 real different lines through Hogpen there. I don't know, in real life I don't attack the curb quite as hard as some of these guys do in the sim, but both lines were able to work, and it actually looks like Nash was able to get a better run than Flamion through at that time.
I went to the Jeff Tyler Racing School around here, and their advice is attack that curb. But maybe that's the advice I was given on account of it wasn't Jeff Tyler's car. Who knows? But apparently, if you're confident, that's the right thing to do, is hop across the curb there and take some of the corner off. So another great little battle pack here.
Well, and I was going to say, nobody tell Alex Albert. He's back in the race now, 2 laps down, unfortunately for him. But that's his car that you would have been bumping over the curbs, right?
No, it was Alyssa's.
Oh, okay, there you go.
But yeah, I was going to point that out. It looks like the power is back on at the Albert household, or whatever the drama is. By God, that's Alex Albert's music I can hear in the paddock, and he's back. So he has lost 2 laps, 3 laps.
Looks like about 2.5 by my count. But he is currently running in 21st place, and I believe we only give points out to the top 20, right? So he'll need some assistance from in front of him if he wants to count any points towards his championship race tonight.
I want to posit to you that this is going to be a drop round for Alex Albert irregardless, but he's here because he loves VIR, which we know he does.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. This is certainly his favorite track, being very local to it, and always a good reason.
Nash has pushed wide in the roller coaster. Aaron Nash had done a great job to get up past Matthew Thompson and Christopher Flamion. He's pushed wide. That might be a technical problem because then he's put it on the tow hook. Look at the replay. It just looks like he's got in too hot on the brakes, pushed out wide, and then decided, nah, that's my day done for whatever reason, which is surprising were it not, maybe a problem with his steering or something.
Well, and it was a little bit odd the way that he was kind of pulling to the left all the way through the grass there. So that's a common sign of a wheel failure when the wheel's pointed all the way left. So we'll have to see as he actually disconnects from the race. So yeah, it looks like something more significant happened there. But that's all Alex Albert needed, because in a couple laps he'll be back into the top 20 at the very least.
Yeah, you can't bank on 10 retirements, but I think this early in a race like this, you could always safely bank on 1 for retirement. So that's unfortunate for Aaron Nash, because he's been having this great scrap, being one of our sort of 3-car battle packs here with Christopher Flamion and Matthew Thompson.
Well, and I guess the other thing worth pointing out to folks is, of course, we are racing the overall points series winner in the ChampCar iRacing series will win a free entry to a ChampCar race valued at up to how many dollars, Alex? Or sorry, Haynes?
I think it might have been $1,525.
Yeah, so just a nice little chunk of change like that. But not only is the overall points winner going to be winning that amount of champ bucks, also a random participant who completes at least 50% of the laps. So Alex Albert might also have his eyes on the random draw prize and be thinking if he can get his 50% in, he's going to get at least an entry into that pool. So even if you're not in the top pack, there's always a reason to show up at the ChampCar iRacing Endurance Series.
Let's do a little race recap here, because I see Justin Hall has, I think, about the most lead anyone's ever had. Nicholas Love has gotten ahead of Coffard, so maybe those little mistakes have just begun to cost Alex Coffard. Just the top 3 isn't quite the tight pack it was a couple laps ago. They're still all there and thereabouts, as Max Lupfer goes a couple tenths of a second faster than all of them. It's just starting to spread out a little bit here.
You know what? I don't have a great reason for you. It looks like Alex Coffard made a little exit or error on the exit onto the back straight the last lap and lost about half second to a second there. And then, of course, Nicholas Love had a second and a half between him and Justin Hall. And now here we are with a pretty big gap between our lead pack, whereas before they were all nose to tail. Very good chance that'll close back up because all these guys have very similar pace.
Does appear like when he puts the hammer down, Nicholas Love can catch Justin Hall just a little bit. Our viewing of the race would seem like Nicholas Love has saved a little bit more tires, saved a little bit more fuel. So if it gets to a point like here where he goes, oh gosh, I need to get back within a second of the leader, he might have that grip and that resource available to him to do so. And now he's back within half a second of Hall, which seems like is about where he wants to be, about where he wants to run along in this first stint before the pit stop.
Well, and it seems to me that the last time I raced the NC, which was fairly recent, that the biggest concern in a longer run was just managing the temperature on those tires. It's really easy with the way these things slide around most of the corners to get the tires, especially on the carcass, to a temperature where they just don't want to stick anymore when you're pushing. So keeping yourself, kind of in that 8 to 9 out of 10 kind of pushing zone, it might be the right move. And as Nicholas Love draws himself to probably within 0.3 of a second here, a couple car lengths of Justin Hall through some fortunate traffic there, I think that we're seeing the benefit of that for him.
Yeah, a little bit of traffic there was William Corridor, one of our 2 corridors. And he is respectfully did the best he could to get out of the way of our competitors. But of course, it's never easy when they're bearing down on you at the top of the roller coaster, which we know is a very one-line braking zone. Did what he could. Justin Hall, Nicholas Love, pretty close. Yeah, just ignoring incorrect information being fed to us by our director, but his heart is in the right place. And I have to say thank you very much, Michael Derby, who's produced all of our coverage all season long. Does a fantastic job bringing you these images of the ChampCar iRacing series.
One could certainly say that there's only one corridor through roller coaster, though.
I wouldn't.
I need a soundboard.
It's just too low hanging fruit on that one. I wasn't gonna go there.
To go a little more seriously, William Corridor has actually taken his pit stop after those issues. So I don't know if he thinks that the pit window is open, presumably, because he did have some damage on the car and took his fast repair there as well. So I wonder if as he was turning into that corner, some of that damage is what caused him to get all wiggly and loose and slide off the track at the top of roller coaster there. So anyway, Corridor now a lap down after that pit stop, but the first of many that we'll see here tonight.
Way and rolling, and he's going to get back into the race. So I guess we'll keep an eye on his progress for a barometer. Coffard dropping a little bit further back. It's kind of now there were 2 for the lead of this race, and you can notice now it's getting quite a bit darker out there. I would say only a couple laps before we see the headlights come on. There's a bit of those orange hues of sunset around the horizon as well. Maybe a bit too much cloud cover for a beautiful sunrise, but sunset, but also sunrise in not too long as well, as time flies like that.
Yeah, and from the pace kind of front, we are seeing that fresh tires are going to make a pretty big difference here. Our leader, who qualified with a 216.4, is now running 218s, which would have put him mid-pack in the qualifying session. So these guys are definitely eating through the tires down as they get down into the later parts of this first stint.
Bit of a defense here from Justin Hall, and Nicholas Love is still going to have a look around the outside. That's interesting at this point in the race, and Hall pushes a bit wide there. There's still just room for Nicholas Love on the outside as the headlights come on. I called that one. I just need to be more confident with it. So yeah, they're actually getting a bit feisty here now.
Well, and I was wondering because, I noticed that Nicholas Love was running 217s while he was catching back up to Justin Hall, which is sort of a pace that I don't know if Justin Hall has right now at this phase of the race. So maybe some of the saving that we were talking about is finally coming to fruition, and Love feels like he's got a bit more pace in his car than Justin Hall does and wants to break away.
Not sure at this point there'd be much team strategy between Justin Hall and Alex Coffard, but it's a possibility. Fortunately, there's been no way to play any team strategy games for Nicholas Love and Sean Saputra. They're separated by about 20 seconds now, although they are only they're qualified
right beside each other.
Well, 3rd and 5th, so Sean Saputra would have been riding along in the wheel tracks behind Nicholas Love on the race start, but then just didn't quite stick with the breakaway pack, and as the laps have gone on, that's seen him drop back a little bit further. And in fact, I would say he's about to come under attack from Christopher Flamion in not too long, were it not for the fact that at the lead they are side by side. And this time I think Nicholas Love is going to get it into roller coaster, or is he? Still, there was just the nose of Justin Hall in there. Love might have got in a tiny bit hot, and somehow from that, Justin Hall holds on to the lead of the race. But he didn't look like he had quite the grip or the speed that Nicholas Love has here.
I think Love suffered from the too tight of a Hans device or a single monitor, whatever you want to call it, and gave Justin Hall a lot of room on the apex of that corner at his own expense. But certainly he's going to keep this attack going on Justin Hall and try and get to the lead here.
You can see exactly how quickly it gets dark when you speed up the universe by 8 times. The headlights came on a lap ago, and now it is getting quite dark into turn 1, where you're going to have quite a bit of racing under darkness, and that is very challenging. Like you said, absolutely nothing for ambient lighting out here. It is your headlights and just your headlights.
It's really remarkable, honestly, how dark it does get out here. And so I'm excited to see how these guys go. It's certainly a track with a lot of variation on the surface, and you really have to know kind of where all the bumps are if you want to put down a fast lap in the dark.
Yeah, and if you're Nate Franklin, you bring your telescope and have a good look at the stars and some of the planets.
It is beautiful country up around this track. But actually, I'm noticing that Nicholas Love and Justin Hall battling has also brought Alex Cofford a little bit closer. So if Nicholas Love doesn't make this move soon, and he does have some lap traffic now coming up ahead of him that he might be able to use, but if he doesn't make this move soon, Alex Cofford might be right up in this battle.
And that's kind of why I question, is this maybe a deliberate ploy from Justin Hall? Just park it here, park it there in a couple places. I guess we're going to find out in a couple of laps. Love, once again, is going to have this opportunity closing up towards the roller coaster. He backs out of it this time. I think he didn't like it last time, wasn't happy. So he's just probably going to wait, and maybe wait until they catch and get past that traffic, because you don't want to have to pull out a line trying to make the move, and then your path is blocked by the traffic, and there's not much the traffic can do when they're coming too wide behind you. You've got to be somewhere, and that ends up kind of blocking out someone. So maybe they're just going to wait.
And I'm checking back through the field, checking in on some of our other battles, and I wanted to go back and see how Chris Flamian was doing as he was chasing down Sean Saputra. But heading into turn 1 on the last lap, or on this lap rather, Chris Flamian actually had a little bit of an incident and locked it up, sliding off into the grass, and that's now actually put him back into a battle with Matthew Thompson, who he's had to fend off at least once on this lap. So that'll be a real frustrating one as the darkness really begins to descend on this racetrack, and Chris Flamian will have to try and find that same pace to catch back up to Sean Saputra and get back some of the 7 seconds he lost by going off track there. But oh boy, is that sun coming down.
Yeah, we're going to have our pit stops in the dark, and isn't that just, typifies my experience of VIR, that's for sure.
I'm feeling like Alex Cofford having to take over a lapper here on the way into the S's typifies my experience at VIR. That is a scary place to make a move on the inside and on the outside in real life.
It's more troubles for Chris Flamian there, because he's gone and dropped that position. So we saw that one on the pictures, Matthew Thompson getting through for 6th place. So a bit of a yo-yo now. Chris Flamian started deep in the field, had a lot of pace, really charged his way up there, and now little mistakes creeping in as he used the tires too hard, maybe.
Yeah, or maybe this sudden change to darkness got him, or as we're hearing from the producer, he had a slowdown that he had to get back.
Tough for him, but thankfully a lot of time left to get some of those positions back. Another set of tires after the pit stop when he decides to take that one.
Yeah, really does.
Our closest 2 cars on track is our lead 2 here of Justin Hall and Nicholas Love.
And if I'm Nicholas Love, I'm feeling nervous every time I try to make this move to the outside down the front straight, because if Justin Hall suddenly decides to dive into the pit lane and I lose my drafting buddy for a few laps, I might not be too excited about 0.06 into across the line, and Nicholas Love gets in deep around the outside. Oh, and there's some traffic off right in front of them, so he'll have to tuck back in and give up that overtaking opportunity. That was Javier Pinzon who actually had an issue there on the exit of turn 1. And live to fight another day, Nicholas Love decides, and he'll be making his next move as soon as possible.
Yeah, there you go. Difficult moment there for Nicholas Love, but he did the sensible and the safe thing just to fall back in line. And we do feel like we're a couple laps away from the pit stop window opening, were it not for the fact that it would be a very long run on the tires to get home from here. So, I mean, you'd have a monster of an undercut going, 2-3 seconds a lap faster for a couple laps. But what a sitting duck you would be at the end of the race.
Bit of drama further down the field. Paul T. Roddy in 16th place, heading into Oak Tree. Looks like he ended up backwards, and he was actually perhaps distracted by William Corridor, who, trying to return to the track, actually drove straight into the side of him. Got a little bit turned around in the darkness here, and Paul T. Roddy on the exit of Oak Tree took a real hard hit to the door. Hopefully that hasn't bent anything suspension-wise, because I know he's already used his fast repair, but it really shows you the difficulty of this track at night. It's so dark out here that Javier, who maybe hasn't spent as much time around here as Paul,
William Corridor,
got a little lost. Oh, sorry, William Corridor, my bad. Clicked on the wrong camera. But Javier's actually had an issue now too. Javier at the top roller coaster has gone off, run it a bit deep, locked it up. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more of those. You see a fair amount in the real series just because this track is so dark.
Are you sure you weren't looking at Alex Coffard, who just went in a bit hot, locked him up at the top of roller coaster, and did third place to Max Lupfer?
No, but holy, the darkness has got a few guys out.
Both of them have done it. There we go. Difficult to spot your braking zone for roller coaster. That's what we've learned. And difficult to spot the cars in the dark as well sometimes. So here's Alex Coffard, who was in third place, being pursued by Max Lupfer. Just gets in too hot, can't slow it down and get it turned at the roller coaster, and that's that. Easy mistake to do. Happens quite often.
Well, and as soon as you glance up at a mirror and then you just miss a braking marker, I mean, 15, 20 feet deep, and the track is also getting cooler and cooler, so probably losing a little bit of grip, I got to assume, for these guys. Yeah, a real challenge out there.
The other thing, I guess, in the dark is just you can find your braking marker perfectly, start slowing down, but just not have that sense for if you're slowing the car down enough and you're coming in too hot, or if you've overslowed the car. Normally, in the daytime, you've got all of your reference markers about how rapidly you're approaching the apex, and you know early if you're going in too hot or if you're leaving some time on the table, on the other hand. So just in the dark, sometimes you spot your braking marker, you start braking, but it's a little while towards the apex before you realize, precisely how you're tracking. As we've caught some replays and some live footage, Max Lupfer still pushing very, very hard. Hasn't quite worked for him. Yeah,
well, and one of the, as Nicholas Love makes kind of a nice little peek there on the outside of Justin Hall, heading into the top of the roller coaster. But one of the common upgrades for folks who might be a little less familiar with sim racing, one of the common upgrades for folks after getting a nice wheel is actually, and ahead of Nicholas Love on the inside, we have Paul T. Roddy. Man, he can't catch a break today. He looks like he just got tangled up, and he got tangled up with David Palermo heading through Hogpan. I think, Palermo on the exit just got a little bit loose, touched the grass, and came across the track, smacked Paul T. Roddy. Man, well, you can't buy a break today anyways. But one of the most common upgrades for folks after you get a nice wheel and a nice setup is to actually upgrade your pedals, because the brake pedals with just a spring in them don't give you the same level of feel that a real stiff racing brake pedal will in a real car. So it's really easy to misjudge when a spring brake pedal is measuring based on how far you push it versus a real brake pedal, which is measuring based on how hard you push it. So it's a bit of a nuance there, but it makes a big difference when you're trying to figure out how much you need to slow down for these corners.
Bit of a panel rubbing between Justin Hall and Nick Love for the lead that we saw there. Pretty harmless stuff, but it it's interesting to see them, race hard in the first couple laps, really settle down for a good half an hour, and now they're I mean, maybe they want that track position before the pit stops, not sure, but they are definitely a little more aggressive than before, and they've got more gap to the cars behind than they've ever had. It's 8 seconds to Lutfer and then a couple more to Alex Coffard. So if they want to ease up the pace half a second a lap, it's not going to cost them.
Well, and it's even more impressive. Riding on board with them, you can really get a sense for how invisible some of your turning points and your braking markers are as they head up the back straight here. And you'll just get a glimpse of the braking markers on the right-hand side here as Nicholas gets a bit of a run, lifts off. But it's so hard to spot your turn-in and your apex all the way through this dark, soupy night here at VIR.
An interesting phase in the race here. I haven't got the numbers exactly how far on fuel they can go from the start, because all of our competitors started with the same amount of fuel on board, about 8 gallons or so. Is that going to get them to the halfway point of the race with 1 hour to go? Are they going to come up a little bit short, or will some drivers be able to go a little longer than that? At this point, it's wait and see, but I want to think, with how the tyres have dropped off, last lap for Justin Hall 3 seconds slower than his best lap of the race, that you are going to not want to make that last stint on the tyres any longer than 1 hour.
Yeah, but we are also seeing some really good pace from the guys behind them. You mentioned that Justin Hall and Nicholas Love could afford to give about a half second a lap. Well, that lap, they gave about 0.8 of a second to Max Lufa in third, and just about the same amount to Coffard, who's in fourth, who's now firmly in the draft of Max Lufa. So we might have two car battles for the top, for the podium positions here shortly as we get down to the fumes in the fuel tanks.
Ooh, Love wide at South Bend, gets it back on the paved stuff before Oak Tree again. Mistake easily made here at VIR. That it's happened before and it will happen again. But thankfully, he was smooth with his inputs over the grass. Hasn't lost too much time, and not too much dignity either.
It'll be interesting to see if he continues to push as hard as he has been through turn 9 there, because I believe that's the second time now in a row that he's gotten 2 tires off on the exit. Sorry, turn number 10.
A bit of a holding pattern at the minute, almost. This 2-hour race approaching halfway, and you wonder when that pit lane, when pit road is going to light up with activity. So I'm sure we'll get to that point in about 10 minutes where everyone is down on the lane, but that moment is not quite just yet. Bit of a scrap over 9th.
Yeah, I was just noticing that Carlos Corredor and Scott Grinnell are getting pretty close together. The only other group on the track to be kind of tight is those two, other than our top 4, of course. Corredor's been making up, Grinnell's been making up some good ground on Corredor over the last few laps, and he'll be within range for a draft this time down the back straight, so we'll see if there's anything to be made of this battle here.
There's a couple cars floating about in that sort of middle section of the pack there. Just a couple seconds up the road from them is Aaron Thorpe and Jay Safiniak not far behind them as well. So that's certainly, you want to get a great pit stop if you're any of those guys. So you don't lose some positions and maybe you can jump some others. So that's what they'll probably be thinking about in this sort of middle phase of the 2-hour race. As well as survival in the dark, I'm sure is their number one thought, and in the back of it is maybe fuel numbers.
Ooh, and just ahead of them, we're seeing some smoke. It's Camilo Cariosa, who's a lap behind both of these guys. They're coming by. It gets 2 wheels off on the exit of hog pen. And we'll see if this plays a role. Corridor dodges, but manages to get back on the racing line. Cuts it a little tighter than Grinnell ahead of him. And still holding about a half second off the back Grinnell. It's really interesting to see the differences in line. Grinnell runs a little bit wide there through NASCAR, and that's going to affect him all the way up through these S's. This track is really good for stuff like that. Just getting yourself a tiny bit out of position on some of the combinations and corners they have can really affect you 2-3 corners down the line. And there's also a lot of sort of interesting things to consider when you're going to VIR to do the 24, like a number of these racers will be this weekend. Such as they come up the S's here, you've got a flag station on the right, which is a bit challenging to see on the dark, but after that flag station, you don't have another one until after Oak Tree. And so you can see all the way across from South Bend, which they're going through right now, over to the other side to see the yellow flag. And so if that yellow flag goes away while you're past South Bend, you can actually get back on the throttle way earlier and make up a bunch of ground through the 2 corners before Oak Tree. This on the left here, that red tower, is where the flagging station would be for the next flag station after the corner. So it's kind of some neat little tricks that you can pick up on while you're practicing in the sim and working on your eye discipline to make sure that you know where you need to look in real life. I can share the fact that the first time I was ever on track in real life, no autocross, no nothing like that. I did about 400 laps of VIR, and then I went out and raced with the huge ass guys at the 24 in the real thing. And our car and myself were plenty fast because we knew the track so well from all the laps we were able to do in the sim.
Directors picked up where I was looking, that it had gotten close between 3rd and 4th until Alex Coffard's just gone too wide into Oak Tree, pushed out wide, and that is a mistake that is easy to make, but is quite costly, because Coffard was starting to close loop for 3rd place. Now he's gone and lost best part of 4 seconds just by getting in there a little bit too hot. And I would again say that I think the darkness just make it hard to tell how fast you're really getting in there. And when you get in too hot into that corner, it just keeps tightening and you find yourself on the grass. Luckily, I think he's avoided sailing off into the Armco, which is also very easy to do.
Yeah, very much possibility when you run wide out there. There is a lot of runoff area in a lot of places around VIR, but that corner is not one of those places.
Enough at the S's sometimes.
Yeah, especially the lower S's, yeah. Oh, and I guess and the upper ones.
Yep. At the lead, 0.3 of a second. Love still showing the nose and maybe showing the headlights in these conditions. Simulated time is almost 11 p.m. now, so still got quite a bit more darkness before the sun will rise here. Hall still just parrying every blow and trying to, maybe rather than be fast, be smooth. That makes him difficult to pass around here, and he retains the lead of the race as we begin lap 24. Bit of traffic up the road, as will happen when you're almost an hour into this race and our field has spread around the circuit. And that's another thing you see here and you see in the real world is there's some sections where you can kind of, as you say, look across at other parts of the track. And if there's a car there, you'll see their headlights.
Oh, you mean like William Corridor, who's unfortunately exited the track outside South Bend.
Trying to stick his nose down the inside of Oak Tree is Nicholas Love. Somehow it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's real tough, and on the track nowadays, there's a little paved runoff on the outside of that curb, so it makes that too wide move a little bit more doable. But wasn't able to get the run he needed there. Was Nicholas Love, and unfortunately for him, it looks like Justin Hall is also going to be getting a draft off of Ernesto Carrioza, who is just the most recent car that Justin Hall's coming up to lap.
There they go. Got to be a bit cautious, but the good thing, at least, about the night is when you come up behind someone, they absolutely know you're there because your headlights are filling their mirrors, filling their cockpit.
Good run from Love here.
Yeah, they can't ignore that you're there, but Justin Hall still just ahead.
Oof, and then a little slide.
Sort of half moves here, looking but not fully committing to trying to make the move. I'm not sure what that is about.
Yeah, it seems like every time he's got just about a sure thing, there's just a little slide or a little something that slows him down.
Ooh. So it remains close first and second, but Alex Coffard from fourth is on pit lane, and I think that makes him the first of our scheduled pit stop takers.
Oh, he misses the box.
Oh dear.
Oh, and he's missed it real deep, so he actually had to back up 2 times to get it stopped fully. So any fuel that he might have saved has certainly been expended. Any time that he might have saved has been expended with that little error there. So that's a real shame for him. But hopefully with this undercut, depending on what the leaders do, he might actually be able to make up some of the ground that will have cost him.
He's 3 or 4 laps earlier than everyone else. Then I do think that the new tires can be worth at least initially 2 or 3 seconds a lap. So very powerful undercut, but then he doesn't want to be that person right at the end with nothing left for tires. You don't want to go too long and puncture your front left, which is actually a possibility here on iRacing if you wear the tires down to 0%, that they go flat on you.
Ooh, and Max Lufa's had a moment there heading through South Bend. He got all 4 tires off on the exit. I wonder if his tires are starting to go. And actually, he makes a little bit of contact with Ernesto Carrioza, who is overtaking 2 on the exit of the corner. But no doubt that he's charging. And I actually think that Lufa's about as close as he's been in recent memory, maybe only about 5 seconds now behind Nicholas Love and Justin Hall. We'll see if these guys are going to pit at the end of this lap or if Coffard's little plan is going to work out.
Still, no idea exactly how much fuel our leaders have got, if they can go much longer past the top of the hour, or if we're going to see everyone run out of fuel and come onto the lane this lap, next lap, maybe around about exactly the halfway point. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on pit entry, see who does what. And I think this is going to be a reaction from Nicholas Love. Justin Hall is going to stay out, but that looks like Love reacting to the pit stop from Alex Coffard. Let's see what Lutfer and some of the others do.
Well, Love finally managed to get past Justin Hall while we were talking about Alex Coffard's pit stop there. So he might have thought, hey, I finally got a gap. Let's get in the pit lane right away and see if we can make it bigger out the other side. Oh, and Nicholas Love has locked it up and not gotten it stopped either and had to back up into the box. So we'll see. This might be the story of a clean pit stop being the key.
We've talked about in the dark, it's tough to find your braking markers. In the dark, it's tough to find your pit crew, apparently, as well. And it does get dark on pit road as well. So, executing that pit stop cleanly can be very, very important.
Sean Sputra from 5th place is now pitting as well, just behind the team car of Nicholas Love. And he has nailed it and not missed his pit stall at all. Nicholas Love pulls out.
Here's some numbers for you. 56 seconds of service for Alex Coffard, 49.5 for Nick Love. So if he did save quite a bit of fuel in the first stint, that would be how he still come out quite considerably ahead of Alex Coffard.
It is worth considering, too, that these guys are probably guesstimating the amount of laps remaining. So it's also possible that one has filled with a lap less or 2 laps less fuel than the other.
Another thing you got to be wary of is, in the first hour, you had a lot of slipstreaming, a lot of tow, and you would have saved some fuel then. if you just multiply that fuel number across the remainder of the race, you might not have that in the second half. So you need to account for how much you saved, but maybe not account for the fact that you'll continue saving that much all the way to the end. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out who has enough fuel, who maybe needs to take a splash and dash right at the end. Not sure. Our leader, Justin Hall, has got a bit of traffic in front of him here, as I think he's coming to pit road and the traffic isn't. So from the lead of the race, Justin Hall diving onto pit road. Who's that who's back on the lane? Oh, someone else pitting with him there. But again, Justin Hall's going to try and find his guy. Max Lupfer has come in. So that's our top 4 all on the lane at the minute. What's the order going to be like once these stops are done for Hall and Lupfer?
Crawford's now going to be coming around for a second lap in his first full lap. So it'll be interesting to see how much speed he was able to produce. If he was able to get all the way back down to his qualifying times and do that 2 laps in a row, this might have been a very good endeavor for him.
Keeping an eye, and of course there's tyres for Hall and Lupfer. They'd be feeling those tyres throughout the last 5 or 10 laps. So they are then going to be very reminded that they want a new set. Matthew Thompson also on the lane, so only a couple drivers now yet to pit. This looks like just past the top of the hour is how much fuel everyone had. Justin Hall's now been stationary just over 50 seconds, longer than Nick Love. It's approaching about 56 seconds now, which was Alex Coffard's service. And now Justin Hall gets rolling after 58 seconds. So he's taken on a comfortable amount of fuel by all accounts. Nicholas Love goes through into the lead of the race.
And I've also got to say, Justin Hall was leading for the longest time during that race. So it's entirely possible that Nicholas Love was just able to save gobs of fuel by running at 50% throttle behind these guys down the back straightaway for 25 laps. Because he's come out, we'll see what it is when he crosses the line, but I've got to think 10 seconds.
I'm seeing about 9 for Love, and that's basically exactly how much shorter his pit stop was. The two were close together, and then Hall has taken on 59 seconds of fuel. Love has taken on 50 seconds of fuel, thereabouts. So noticeably, a quicker pit stop from Love, who was, third man in the train, second man in the train for a lot of the opening part of this race here. We said that the dividends to be paid from a good strategy are double here when the race is twice as long. So if he's got the pace now that he's not going to get caught by Justin Hall, then Nick Love has played a very clever strategy indeed, saving as much fuel as he did at the start.
Yeah, and we'll see if he was able to account for how much he was saving, as you were talking about earlier, because I think that will certainly be a consideration if they're going to be this spread out. Alex Cofford, who was the first of our top 4 to pit, has unfortunately maybe not won out in that exchange, probably to do with his several attempts to get the car stopped in the pit lane. He's come out a few seconds behind, and with a couple pieces of traffic between himself and Max Lupfer, who looks to be running in third.
So we're going to ride on board with Max Lupfer for the minute as we take a bit of a commentary break, gear up to get to the end of round 10 of ChampCar iRacing series. Lupfer's running in third right now, going to try and hunt down Justin Hall, and you'll appreciate how dark and challenging it can be VIR at night. David Haynes and Devin Peters back with you here on the coverage for the ChampCar iRacing series. Pit stops are done, and Sean Saputra runs off the circuit there. We've really had our field condensed a little bit, brought some action after our pit stops, and Devin, you've been keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, and things got real tight there for a minute. Matthew Thompson and Chris Nicely battling down the straightaway up towards the upper S's, made some contact. Scott Grinnell and Jay Sofianek have been battling as well. And Max Lufa put in some scorching times at 2:15.9, the fastest lap of the race, while his competitors for the podium were running 2:18s. So we'll see if he's able to maintain that sort of pace as we continue on. Less than an hour to go in this race.
Yeah, and less than a second between Justin Hall and Max Lupfer for second and third now. You point out they're a bit closer on the most recent lap, but the lap before that certainly was Max Lupfer charging down seconds per lap, and he's continuing to be the fastest driver out on circuit. They're going to cut the timing beam this time, and we'll see what it was like this lap. Justin Hall's found a little something else. He's back into the 2:16s with a 2:16.7, but Max Lupfer absolutely matched it and is now going to be in the zone to pick up the draft.
Wow, and he's flying 2:15.7 out there, which is nearly 7/10 of a second faster than our pole qualifying. So, geez, he's really putting down some good laps. Let's see if he can keep this pace up.
While both of them are still catching Nicholas Love at the lead, big question mark around his fuel number, because almost everyone else taking 56 seconds of fuel on board. That must be around about 8 or 9 gallons. For whatever pit stop service he took, I think Nicholas Love has taken 1 gallon less than everyone else.
Yeah, and that would add up by the math, and he was about 8 seconds shorter on the lane than everyone else too. So, yeah, he's going to be a real question mark right till the end of this race.
We know he saved a lot in the first hour of the race. We're just not sure, and is he sure that he saved a whole gallon? It's be quite the achievement there. But he still has, well, it's 6 seconds of a buffer there. The guys behind are lapping quicker, still have 50 minutes to catch him, and if there's any question about the fuel, then he's going to be kind of a sitting duck when Hall and Lupfer do catch him and are able to just push on at pace in the sunrise. Speaking of, it's now 1:20 a.m. In the server, and we press on towards sunrise. It is still quite a while away, but it will sneak up on us, just like the darkness snuck up on us. Oh, Justin had a problem at the exit of the roller coaster there. He drops back into third.
Yeah, and not only is it, reaching the darkest parts of the night, we're also seeing some changes to the weather, down now to 69 degrees. The track temp, though, has also dropped almost 10 degrees, almost 15 degrees from its peak at 89, now 74 degrees Fahrenheit. And the humidity is really starting to come up, over 87%. Or 86% rather, humidity when we started the race around 50. So real variation in the track conditions out there. And it certainly looks like Lupfa is adjusting well to those changes. We'll see if the other guys can find some of the pace that he's been able to put down.
Yeah, grass is slippery at the best of times, but you can visually see the dew that will settle on it in the morning if we do get some. And as that humidity trends upwards and we head towards the morning, you'd suggest that's quite a good bet. So it might be a little frosty for the morning. Keeping our eye here on Lupfer and Hall. Is Hall going to stick with Lupfer? Is Lupfer going to close Nick Love for the lead of the race? I think Hall's been very good at not making any of the big mistakes, except for where he's just gone and lost this second place. So I think he'll be able to maybe ride along with Lupfer. And all accounts would suggest that Max Lupfer has a real turn of pace across one lap when he wants to put it down. Now he gets a little sideways at South Bend on his way towards Oak Tree, but he kept it on the pavement, and I think that just shows how hard he's pushing on his brand new tires to try and make sure he's taking time out of the lead and putting the pressure on Love. still some other little spot fires up and down the field. Not just our exciting lead battle. Thompson and Saputra still battling it out over 5th. There was another one further down the field, I think Grinnell and Thorpe maybe. So there's a couple out there.
Yeah, and I've just let our producer know, Chris Nicely actually had a heck of a moment coming through Oak Tree, ran it wide. So we'll see if we can get a replay on that for you folks. But that's knocked him effectively out of that battle for 5th place there that was brewing between himself, Thompson, and Sean Saputra. He's now about 15 seconds behind those guys as he crosses the Venus time by.
Fortunately for Chris Nicely, he's going to need another pit stop as well here because he had that one stop basically on lap 2 or something. He took on a bunch of fuel then, but nowhere near enough compared to everyone else taking about 50 seconds of fuel. He took about 30 seconds. So he's going to have a shorter stop, get to the end here. His tyres are very old as well at this point compared to those drivers just behind him like Flamian and such. So yeah, Nicely, I think he could still get a top 10 here for sure, and he's going to have great tyres at the end if he takes a set, but it's not quite representative. I think Flamian has him covered in this battle for 7th. Nonetheless, the two guys might scrap it out for our entertainment. Who knows?
Well, Chris Flamian and Chris Nicely are two guys that appreciate a good scrap, so I have no doubt that they'll provide for us.
Yeah, I believe they've each had a couple in their time as well. So we'll see what happens in the Chris battle here. We know Nicely can also be, very rapid, but he is fighting with a hand behind his back here. He still needs another pit stop, and his tyres are about 25 laps older than Flamian right behind him in the mayonnaise mobile.
Looking back at our timing screens, though, it looks like Nicholas Love has gotten the message that he was under attack from Max Lupfa. He's put a 2:17.3 down last time by, and Max Lupfa only able to manage a 2:17.1. So looks like for the moment that gap has stabilized. But of course, we'll keep an eye on that for you.
And we kind of saw this at the start of the race as well. Max Lupfa, massive speed, moving his way up through the pack. But I'm just not confident he looked after the tyres quite as well as some of the other more endurance-focused competitors.
Yeah, no doubt that he's got some pace. But yeah, you're right. And consistency has been a bit of an issue for him too. Right after he put in that 2:59, he was running the next lap and put 2 tires off on the exit of turn 1, which caused him to lose about a second. And he put in a 2:16 the next time by. This time by, though, of course, proving my analysis wrong, he puts in a 2:17.0 and Nicholas Love a 2:17.9, though he did have to deal with some traffic. So, yeah, a little bit of a seesaw, yo-yo, whatever you want to call it, going on at the front. And Max Lupfa and Justin Hall now just 5 seconds behind Nicholas Love.
It's amazing what you can find online. If I'm reading this correctly and it's truthful, we're looking at Max Lupfa, the 2011 New Jersey Rotex Max Challenge Senior Division Champion. So a little bit of go-karting pedigree there. But, that's where you find the speed and the car control, is that sort of feeling of the car underneath you. But what about looking after the tyres and the fuel over a 2-hour race?
Yeah, different battle altogether. Speaking of different battles, Matthew Thompson, it looks like he's squaring up to make a move for 5th place on Sean Saputra as they head down into turn 1. He gets a real big draft. Oh, and he backs out of it. That's a shame. But he and Sean Saputra are real close together. So...
yeah, Saputra has just sort of parked it in the middle of the road on the way towards turn 1 there, and Thompson wanted to get by, but just maybe didn't want to get by that much.
Yeah, and a lot of back and forth between those guys so far this race. Thompson's car, of course, now looking all shiny and new because he was able to take his fast repair at the pit stop, so he won't be suffering any of the lost top end that he was probably suffering from with that bent up quarter panel from earlier in the race.
Yeah, and Thompson was definitely going back and forth with Flamian earlier in the race. Now Flamian's the next car behind them. And he's maybe going to be able to work his way up here. We'll see. So the two battles on my timing screen is Lutfrin Hall in second, trying to close up to the lead, and Saputra and Thompson here. And I feel like maybe Thompson has come alive again after that pit stop.
Yeah, maybe that was hurting him a little bit more than we thought. Either way, Lufa and Hall managed to take a little bit out of the leader again, another 3/10 that lap, and sort of closing that gap up slowly.
Yeah, traffic for Saputra and Thompson. Saputra's got past. Thompson, is he going to be able to get clear before the roller coaster? I don't think so, which is not great for Thompson, who was following so closely. Sean Saputra now just, you can see, held up just a little bit, maybe, across roller coaster. Now he's going to try and find his way through it. Has to get his elbows out, but it's cost him a tiny bit of time there. Thankfully, his car remains all shiny and new, without any of those damage on the body panels and the lights.
Yeah, William Corridor did the real gentlemanly thing, got off the line and gave him a lot of space. But for Matthew Thompson, another consideration for him as he comes up on the next little group of lap traffic here is that lap traffic includes Paul T. Roddy, who, as we remember, he had contact with a little while ago. And I'm sure that Paul won't get back at him, but I'm also sure that Paul probably won't make it easy for Matthew as he goes through. Because that was a little bit aggressive on Matthew's part for sure.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Roddy is forgetful for those kind of things. This is difficult for Sean Saputra right here, though. All the cars he's got in front of him, it's backed him up a little bit. There's no way to get past the lower S's here unless someone is very, very compliant. So that's cost Sean Saputra a bit of time working his way through. Matthew Thompson breezes on past as they now come to the upper S's. And this is one of those places where new tires is lovely for you, with these like 4 changes of direction going uphill.
It is tough to follow right behind, though, as Matthew Thompson kind of shows us there. He misses the braking point or the turn-in point a little bit and runs it wide. Oh, and Paul T. Ruddy does make it easy on them. He actually runs completely off the track, whether by accident or by design, hard to say.
Paul T. Roddy's mowing and lawn care right there. So he was indeed very nice to 5th and 6th place. Not sure he meant to, but once he was out there, I think he's a smart enough competitor, wise enough to realize, I'll just stay here until they're through and then I'll get on with my race. So I think it was smart stuff in the end, even if it was a little mistake. He still kept his head.
Well, and checking back in on our leaders there. Last time by, Nicholas Love, 2:17.2. Max Lupfa, 2:16.4. Justin Hall, 2:17.6. And so now Max Lupfa has actually managed to open up about 1.5 seconds on Justin Hall. See if that was just traffic, or if Justin Hall is going to have a hard time hanging with Max Lupfa and his sudden burst of speed that we're seeing here.
Trying to take a look if there was any damage or anything on the car for Chris Flamion, because he's brought it down onto pit road for a second time and parked it. So not quite sure what happened there for Flamion, but it looks like he is out of the race.
That's interesting.
Moves some other drivers further up. Knisley goes into 7th now. It was a battle they were having back and forth there, and now it's, I think, quite confidently, comfortably is the 2 words I mixed together there into word soup. Chris Knisley's position.
And we are watching, I believe, Max Lupfa here as he's following just ahead of him, Jay Sofianek, who's just recently been put a lap down. The leaders have really put on a breakneck pace here. Max Lupfa, big contact. And they got away with one there. That's going to cost Max Lupfa some time, but that could have easily put them both into the inside guardrail there. You got to hurry to catch up. But yeah,
and he into second place with the time that cost Lutfer. I thought both of them were going into the barrier on the inside there, if I'm honest with you, but which is a bit of impatience from Max Lutfer. Trying to carry the speed through Hogpen with the car in front and tapped the quarter there of Safirniak, who obviously wasn't jumping out of the way to let second and third through. But in the end, I think that could have been a much bigger accident than it was, where Lutfer sort of pushed Safirniak sideways down the track for a couple hundred feet there.
We're actually seeing Alex Crawford make a second pit stop, missing his pit stall again. So I'm not sure what that would be all about, because we did think that he took enough fuel last time, right? He is getting fresh tires.
Maybe strategy. I don't know. I'm taking a wild guess.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see. What's a set of tires worth? It might be something, because he's got such a big gap back to fifth place rather, almost half a minute, that maybe he thinks that this is his best chance, or maybe he's banking on leaders being short on fuel now that they're not all drafting together.
I mean, there's no point for fastest lap, so I don't know. Maybe he's thought that the tires really are gonna drop off hard, and it's 30 seconds or so to get the new set of tires. Not quite Formula One levels there, or even IndyCar, where they are far more rapid than your pit crew here on iRacing. But the tires were worth 3 seconds a lap or so. There's 15 laps remaining. I don't think he's going to make up all of the time from that pit stop, but I think he'll make up some of it. And if he had any on fuel, then now he's covered that off.
Yeah, it looks like it took him about 30 seconds to get tires, so he'd have to run 10 laps, 3 seconds a lap faster. That's going to be pretty tough. But if everyone else ends up having to take an extra stop, he might be playing a really smart move there. And he only lost 2 positions in the process, 2 positions that I'm pretty sure he'll be able to make up. So kind of some interesting plays there.
He has come out a couple seconds behind Saputra and Thompson, who we've seen was a very exciting little battle that's still going on between them. So I guess the worry is he gets caught up behind those guys. Yeah,
you'll have to keep an eye on that. Another little drama back further into our field. 17th place, Camilo Cariosa has...
Justin Hall and Max Lutfer both make contact there with Camilo Carrizosa, who was parked on the circuit. I think Justin Hall took a much bigger hit.
No, I think Lutfer got him real good. Yeah, real square on the front corner there. But yeah, Cariosa got a little loose going through those lower S's, and then when he rejoined, it looks like Justin Hall and then Lutfer just couldn't get out of the way of that car as it was rejoining.
Trying to grab the whole replay here, but it's just a little bit of grass on the way in, and then it's a difficult place to get yourself back on the circuit. I don't think he was moving particularly quickly. Maybe the other guys should have had time to spot him. But again, you got to be careful how you do your rejoin.
It's really hard when you're in Cariosa's position, because there's such limited visibility, from the lack of lighting around that area. And then he spins up the tires a little bit as he's getting back on track, and a little bit of a hurry from Justin Hall and Max Lutfer, but definitely not an ideal place for Cariosa there either.
Well, that would be at least a bit of damage for both of those guys, Hall and Lutfer. This maybe helps Nicholas Love a little bit, and it increases the chances, I think, of Alex Coffard being able to catch them, especially if this forces another pit stop from either of those guys. Justin Hall, I think, carries on.
Yeah.
So they don't appear to have that much damage.
I'm looking at Hall's car, and I'm not seeing a ton of damage. on my end, Lufa's car does have a little bit of damage. Especially on that left front corner, the bumper's kind of folded up. So I wonder if that's going to cost him anything from that kind of breakneck pace that he had going. But shows you that just one little mistake from someone 2 laps down can really have a big impact on the complexion of the race at the lead of this field.
It's hard to only pin that on Carrizosa there. I mean, you got to be careful with your rejoin and such, but he was facing forwards. He was there for a while. The guys just needed to have a bit more caution with the yellow flags waving, and they just barreled. They've both barreled in there and just not quite expecting that. 2 other drivers in front managed to work their way around without making contact. There was maybe just a bit of tunnel vision between these guys battling over second place, that they didn't, broaden their view, take in the full situation, and realize that giving up a couple seconds would be more valuable than what ended up transpiring.
Yeah, then continuing on with a broken car.
Max Lupfer, I think, is definitely suffering a lot harder than Justin Hall. Hall's lap matched Nick Love, but Max Lupfer is 4 seconds off and 9 seconds off his best. We'll see what the time is as he crosses the line this time. He's definitely dropped back seconds and seconds on Justin Hall, so I think Lupfer might get forced into another pit stop here.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see if I wonder if he took that fast repair.
They've got 2 to my understanding for this 2-hour race. So This is Lupfer's second trip onto the lane. He might still have a fast repair available to him to get that tuned up, get out there quickly, and still try and salvage. He could still come out in third here as he takes no service but the fast repair. So he must be confident on his fuel number then. So no new tires, no fuel, just the repair. Lupfer is back out in third.
Checking back in on Alex Crawford, he's made short work of Sean Saputra and Chris Nicely, just overtaking Sean Saputra on the back straight there on the way into roller coaster. And he's showing the value of those fresh tires, running a 217 flat last time by. And Matthew Thompson. Sorry, Sean Saputra and Matthew Thompson on the back straight that time by, which puts him all the way up into 4th place, where he was. We've gotten word that Chris Flamion, who disappeared from us, it was his bedtime, and so he had to drop out of the race a little bit early. I believe that Flamion has a job that requires him to get up very, very early in the morning. So unfortunate for him, but glad that he came out and did his 50% race distance and got himself entered to win that $1,500 prize that's being offered to all drivers who participate in the ChampCar Endurance Series on iRacing. Okay, and following along with Nick Love right now, who's sort of got a handy lead on this race. He's really benefited from that strategy that he pulled out earlier, running comfortably ahead of Justin Hall and Max Lufa, and with no real traffic on the horizon ahead of him. Closest battle on track for us right now is actually the battle between Jay Sofianek and Aaron Thorpe, who are down in 8th and 9th. Those two are more or less nose to tail. And Sophianex bounced around a little bit today. He was making a challenge as high as sixth place, I believe, earlier in the race, after what I would say for him was a bit of a disappointing qualifying effort, putting himself all the way down in 17th place. But he's managed to rectify that all the way up to 9th place now, up to 8th place now, with Aaron Thorpe just a few seconds behind him.
I think I'm on planet Earth with you guys now.
Oh, you've come back from Australia?
I mean, if Australia was real, which it isn't, it would still be on planet Earth.
That's good to hear.
So take stock of the weather and the time, though, because we've accelerated forward almost 4:30 a.m. Seen from the onboards and the TV cameras, very, very dark out there, as it has been all through the night, but sunrise cannot be far away, and I'm sure that will be a relief for all of our drivers who've probably felt this is a pretty long race, 2 hours, to a stint. It's the ChampCar way, and it is a long time to be in your seat and driving and racing. So I feel like the sunrise will rejuvenate some of the drivers and be a welcome sight, especially to someone like Nick Love leading the race, and whose lead has extended out a couple of seconds. And then the other point to bring there, Max Lupfer obviously thinks he has enough fuel because he didn't take any extra. So maybe Love does have the fuel covered, as Sophianek loses spot to Aaron Thorpe. Sophianek just a bit too deep into roller coaster.
Yeah.
That's happened a couple times and easy to do in the dark.
Yeah, and Alex Crawford had a similar issue, losing it on the way into NASCAR last lap. He gave up the spot briefly to Matthew Thompson, but has now managed to sneak his way back ahead this lap. So still a little battle there, but they are kind of battling for the best of the rest because the podium has managed to separate themselves pretty handily. We've got 7 cars left on the lead lap after what has been a pretty eventful race, especially for some of the folks in the mid-pack, and 20 cars still running. Maybe time for a quick run through the field. I think I might be all alone again. So Nicholas Love is running in first place, as we've mentioned a few times. Justin Hall, about 8 seconds behind, hasn't managed to find the same pace that he had when Max Lupfa was pushing him. He's running just a little bit slower than Nicholas Love. Max Lupfa, after that unfortunate incident and pit stop, is now 31 seconds behind the leaders in third place. Alex Crawford, after having taken 2 full pit stops as well, he got tires on his second pit stop, has managed to use those tires to set some quick laps, running 1:18 behind the leader. Just behind him, Matthew Thompson, 1:19 behind the leader. Sean Saputra and Chris Nicely are also pretty close in 6th and 7th place. A few seconds between them. Sean Saputra in 6th and Chris Nicely in 7th. Aaron Thorpe is the first of our cars that's a lap down. He and Jay Sophianek have been battling, and we've been checking in on them pretty regularly. Scott Grinnell has at times made a challenge on Jay Sophianek, but has had a couple issues lately, a couple of off-track excursions that have put him back to 10th place pretty firmly. Andrew Kosick now in 11th place, with Carlos Corredor behind him in 12th, the last of our cars that are 1 lap down. Ernesto Carriosa is in 13th place, the first of our cars 2 laps down. Alex Albert is also 2 laps down and has been ever since the power went out at his place early on in this race. He's up to 14th place, though, which is a respectable finishing position for him, especially if you can pick off 1 or 2 more. So this won't necessarily have to be a drop week for him. David Palermo, 2 laps down as well. Behind him, we've got Javier Pinzon and Paul T. Roddy. Roddy, who's been on the receiving end of more than a few unlucky moments, cars spinning in front of him and the like. And Camilo Carriosa is in 18th place with William Corredor in 19th. And I believe Corridor is the last of our competitors that's still running. Apologies, I got a dog who wants some attention in the background here. Things are pretty quiet on track for the most part right now. We do have... Yeah, we do have Alex Crawford putting in some pretty solid laps with those fresh tires, of course, pulling away slowly from Matthew Thompson. But as it tends to be, things are getting a little quiet before the dawn, and we'll see if the big change in track temperature that comes with the rising of the sun is going to make a difference in the positions of some of these guys. We're riding on board currently. Please confirm production. I believe we're with Alex Crawford right now. Apologies, I'm having some issues with the stream on my end as well. Not able to keep that stream running. But Crawford looks like he's going to be coming up on a bit of laugh traffic ahead of him in the form of Andrew Cossack and David Palermo, who are on separate laps but are running close together on track that he'll have to navigate here. VIR can be a really lonely place at night, I gotta say, not just if your commentating partner happens to disappear on you. When you're out on the far end of the track, unless you've got some real nice radios, it can be tough to get a signal over the hill that is roller coaster and out to the car on the far end. So I know that the first time I came out here, we only had radio sequence or radio communication from about Hogpen, and then all the way out through NASCAR, turn 5, 6 there. Otherwise, we were sort of solo and left to our own devices. And at night, it can feel really, really lonely and long. And I imagine some of these guys are getting to that point as we're now an hour 40 into this race. But 5:15, and I am starting to see 5:15 a.m. in the sim, and I am starting to see just the twinklings of the sun on the horizon as Alex Crawford makes quick work of his first bit of lap traffic. And looks like he's getting some consideration from Andrew Cossack as well. Probably worth considering the points implications of what we're seeing here today. Nicholas Love, our leader, is currently 7th overall in the points. And Justin Hall, who's in second place. We mentioned earlier in the broadcast that he's actually 2nd overall in the points. Alex Albert's been pretty dominant so far this season, securing 5 wins out of 7 races, I believe. So really showing some pace. But he will make significant ground on Alex Albert with a really strong finish today, assuming that he's able to keep everything together. Oh, and Crawford's had a moment here at South Bend. Just gone all 4 wheels off, but manages to gather it back up. Not a move I'd recommend on the real deal. Grass is often very wet out there. Going down the order, Max Lufa has had a win. One of the 3 drivers to have a win overall this year. He's in 5th place in the points. Alex Crawford running 4th in the race, also 4th in the points. And he'll probably make up some ground, overtake Bradley Daly, and get up to 3rd place, assuming that things shake out the way they are right now.
Forgive me having to reboot everything in my house, but hopefully I'll be back for the finish of this one.
By the sounds of things, we got you back, so that's good. I'm riding along now with Justin Hall, who was about to make an overtake on a lap down traffic, but Camilo Carriosa has found the outside of the curb on the exit Oak Tree and spun it into the infield. He's now letting Ernesto Carriosa by. One of two sets of brothers that are in the race today, Ernesto and Camilo, as well as, and I apologize,
brothers.
siblings.
No, because when we have two Camerons, we have a father and son.
There you go. And Carlos Corredor and William Corredor, who are also presumably related. Oh no, and Camilo Carriosa has lost some focus. It really seems to be struggling with the grip right now. Has a little spin there at the top of Oak Tree. Manages to gather it back together, but probably caused Max Lupfa a little bit of heart attack because I believe same car and similar situation that caused Max Lupfa all his troubles a few laps back. Lupfa is not managing to make much ground on Nicholas Love, but he has managed to whittle about 6 seconds off of Justin Hall. And I believe if it continues at this rate, he should be close to striking distance by the end of the race. So Justin Hall is going to have to really keep up the pace if he wants to have a chance, or if he wants to hold on to that second place. Because as we know, Max Lupfa, plenty of speed.
Certainly very good at extracting a lap of pace out of the car. Oh, and there's contact between Thompson and someone else on the way into the roller coaster. We've seen that a couple times. Some drivers are a little bit more brave on the brakes on the way into there than some others. And for good reason. It is an intimidating corner.
Yeah, certainly one of those corners where you can make a lot of time. And I'm noticing the sky starting to really brighten up now. In the next 5 minutes or so, I'm expecting, with the 8 times speed we have on the time of day, we'll see our full sunrise and maybe start to see the headlights pop off. Down to about 13 minutes to go in this race. Things have settled down pretty nicely, especially if you're out front.
Yeah, when he emerged from his pit stop, the pressure was still on Nick Love, certainly, with Hall and Lupfa bearing down on him, but he has been given a bit of respite from that and has built himself out a little bit more gap. And if he's worried about fuel, well, he's not under too much duress right now. He can roll it off the throttle here and there and, well, not quite get out and push. He doesn't have that much time. Certainly, if it's right on the edge, he's got some wiggle room.
Yeah, he can do that lift and coast and save all that fuel. And there is a lot of places, of course, with all the big straights around here, there's a lot of places where you can really save some fuel going into the corners.
Especially some of the downhill runs.
Yeah, and also, you got to think that if he's the leader, then hopefully his fuel calculations were considering how far he would go in the race. So, got to think that that's worked out pretty well for his math.
I can see just a little bit of that illumination in the sky now as we've crossed past 6 a.m. We're heading into the sunrise territory right at the end of this race. Yeah,
and I really can't help but encourage all the folks out, watching this today that, get out to VIR if you can, if you're able to, maybe not this year, but in the future, because it really is a special race in ChampCar. Really beautiful viewing areas, great facility, hotels on site if you book them early enough, of course. But a great experience and a great way to do a 24-hour race.
Shooting range as well, I believe.
As well as a go-kart track.
Everything you need. In fact, it's been rated one of Virginia's top 10 mancation destinations because someone decided that mancation was a necessary word to be invented.
And I heard something from our producer, but I'll have to get him to say that.
There's
again.
also a day spa if you want to, good for your skin or whatever, and your relaxation and that. So, bit of everything.
Yeah, I know that a few of the partners on the Huge Ass team like to go and schedule a spa day on or after race day, just to get out of the heat, because it is a warm place in August when they hold the race out here. Jungle-like in some respects.
It is well and truly daylight on circuit at the minute. You can enjoy the visual acuity that our drivers have not had racing through the night. And it is a beautiful sunrise as well. We've cleared out some of the clouds that were overnight, and it's I'd say only partly cloudy now. Officially still overcast, but some nice breaks in the cloud cover and some orange hues on track. We're in the final 10 minutes of the race, and that will be of great relief to Nick Love as he comes to extend his lead yet further. Justin Hall in second, Max Lutfer in third, has the fastest lap of the race to his name, the only man to have ducked into the 2-minute 15s. Regrettably, he's a little far from that pace at the moment.
Ooh, a little bit of drama in turn one.
Palermo?
That was Ernesto Carriosa and William Corridor who actually made contact, and it looked kind of like William Corridor executed, maybe with some assistance, but executed a pretty solid pit maneuver there on Ernesto. I don't know if there's some bad blood there, but they got together pretty firmly, and Ernesto ended up facing the wrong way.
Yeah, at the same time, David Palermo was finding the barriers, so we're not out of the crazies now that we're out of the darkness as well. So,
yeah, Aaron Thorpe's had an issue. Oh, and he and Carriosa have come together. Some real struggles here through the lower S's for these guys. But the sun change and visibility, making people feel a little bit braver as they head into the corners. And also some sudden changes to the track, because the track temperature is starting to really climb for these guys. Up a few degrees, certainly, from where it was in the coldest parts of the night.
And you mentioned the humidity coming up, and now that the sun is up, you can kind of see that in the air as well. A bit of haze on the horizon, not fog, not just a light mist in the air, and that lets you know the state of the humidity on this morning.
Yeah, if you ever rent a seat out here or ever bring your car down, make sure you book yourself this stint, because the sun coming up is really, really beautiful.
And make sure you bring your cool suit as well.
Yeah.
Those are a lifesaver.
Yeah, Dave Palermo, after that contact, has opted to come in and get his fast repair, and
maybe a gallon of fuel while he's at it. Not sure.
Yeah, that might have been a splash. Might have been I forgot to turn off the fuel before I went into the pits. Hard to say, but either way, he's coming out with a straight
guy
car.
Starts running over with the fuel jug, and you got to be like, no, 7 minutes, we're good. He's got a bit of traffic to rejoin into, but he's cautious. Nicely's going to go around the outside. It's not for position, best I can tell.
Yeah, no, not for position. Nicely's running in 7th. He's the first guy a lap down. And he's trying to chase down Sean Chaputra, but that's a pretty solid 30-second gap there. So unlikely that he'll get all that back.
Did I miss a pit stop for Chris Knisley while I was gone? How many stops do you? Yeah,
it looks like I see 2.
Okay,
and
good.
I see
I'm seeing 1.
36 seconds on the second one.
So he did make that second stop that was necessary for him on account of he had to come down on the lane very early in the race. So good on him persevering. And I think he's going to get some reward for that as well, the way it's looking.
Yeah, that 7th place is probably looking pretty good after his issues early on. But he's managed to put together a real solid comeback effort here. As I say that, he, of course, runs wide at Oak Tree. Commentators curse anyone. But he managed to keep it off the wall, and David Palermo even gives them some room to get back up to speed.
Yeah, there we go. Generous of of Palermo, considering they had to actually fight for that one a bit earlier in the lap. He now decides it's not worth it. Get on with it, Mr. Knisley, in your green and black stripes.
Yep. And coming down to about 5.5 minutes to go. Looks like pretty much everything's settled, barring some unexpected drama. I mean, the British Grand Prix showed us that 3 guys can pop a tire, and heck, for us, maybe someone could run out of fuel. So not all done just yet, but looking pretty settled.
Yeah, indeed. If I'm seeing this correctly, our biggest gainers, Aaron Thorpe and Scott Grinnell. I think it's Scott Grinnell, our biggest gainer, with 9 positions up.
Yep. Yeah, that reads right to me. And part of a whole group of New Yorkers there, 8th, 9th, and 10th place, all from New York. New York club,
it's interesting. We have had those kind of clumps. I mean, we've got quite a strong Florida contingent out there as well. So there was a while where they were sort of 3 in a row with our drivers like, the Corridors and Javier Pinzon. Interestingly, one of the Carrizosas is Club Florida and the other one is Club West. So, yeah, there you go. But then you've got the likes of Alex Coffard, who's Club Carolina, but a proud Alaskan currently living in Florida. So he's been everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and I was just going to note that there's only one driver from the Virginias here, and that's Alex Albert. And as we mentioned, this is probably his favorite track. And probably some trash talk going on here. Nicholas Love with...
the 2 Love racing cars on track together with Love 1 lap up on his teammate Sean Saputra there. So they're rolling along together. Maybe they're going to make it a photo finish, but the time sheet will tell you that regrettably Sean Saputra is a lap down on his friend and teammate. Is he helping tow Love around for the fuel?
Yeah, I'm just wondering that, because that was a slow lap, a 2:19.2. Oh, and Nicholas Love is coming down the pit lane.
Wow, there we go. Justin Hall was only 13 seconds back. So even if this is a splash of just a gallon for Love, if Hall has got enough, I think he's going to come through into the race. So we have to watch this one. You said you never know what could happen. 3 minutes left, and Nicholas Love needs a splash of fuel. Justin Hall carries on into the lead of the race. 10 seconds now of fuel for Love, and he's still stationary there. Well, where's Lupfo? This is
Lufa's going to be coming by. Yeah, Lufa's going to be coming by. Oh man! And Nicholas Love, whether it was the fuel saving that threw off his calculations, or I don't know what, but that's a real heartbreak for him. That's got to be 1 extra lap. It's got to be what that is. 2 minutes 50 seconds, 2 minutes 40 seconds to go. And Justin Hall's going to get the whole haul for points from this race.
Stop.
Or in anything else.
You were running over, while I was gone, you were running over some of the figures and the stats. Has Justin Hall got a win in this championship before?
Not this season.
Not this season. Well, he's been close. He had a good performance at Mosport.
Yeah, and he's done pretty well for himself whenever he's come out. So, this will be a big win for him in the points. That's for sure. There
we go. A bit of heartbreak for Nick Love as he gets dropped from the lead to 3rd. Justin Hall, after almost 2 hours of racing now, finds himself back in the lead. Familiar place for him, and is 13 seconds ahead.
Oh, and
Max Lufa in 2nd.
Yeah, Max Lufa just put 2 tires off in the middle of Oak Tree there, but Nicholas Love and him are going to have a little battle here going down to the end. We'll see if this is a white flag, but Max is pushing, but Nicholas Love has had the chance to let his tires cool a little on pit lane, which can be pretty critical in these NCs.
Yeah, I mean, the tyres are kind of familiar with what you'd expect from ChampCar. I do believe they're actually, not sure if they're slicks or they're treaded, but regardless, they don't wear down particularly fast. You said they get hot and they get slick, and even if you just give them the opportunity to cool down a little, you can get some of that pace back. Not quite as good as putting a new fresh set of tyres on, but certainly just the thermal management might be helping Love here push up towards Lupfer. Looks like Justin Hall's just started the final lap of this 2-hour race, so it is do or die for second and third here.
And we'll have to see how much pressure Nicholas Love's able to put now 1.6 seconds back.
Oh, he's closed big time on the brakes into turn one there, and that is really where I think the performance kind of goes with the tires, is you start losing that ability to brake and turn at the same time with the front tires. And then you see Lupfer just wash out a little wide in places compared to where Love is tighter, tidier, and maybe gets to carry a bit more apex speed as well. We'll look at Hall when he crosses the line, but for this last lap, Love really is actually putting the pressure on Lupfer.
And we've seen Lupfer have a few issues with consistency during this race so far, so here's hoping he can keep it together through the next few corners.
Within a second now, Love will be getting the toe on the way towards the S's. He just needs to be close enough with the drive out of Oak Tree. That's your number one overtaking spot, is at the end of the longest straight. Both of them pushing so hard through South Bend. It's 2 tires in the dirt for Lupfer. It's all 4 for Love. And he doesn't roll out of the throttle because he wants this. You can sense it. Tighter line through Oak Tree. Good exit. The battle is on for second here, and it's going to happen early. Look at the overspeed for Love. Lupfer pressures him to the right-hand side of the circuit. It's not going to scare Love, who has his nose in front now.
It might be a second bit of drafting, though, here, because Lupfer's now behind, and this straight's so long, and these cars are so power limited. Yeah, Lupfer's going to poke back out with a little run.
Just has his nose in. It's the inside of the corner for Love. I think he's got that one covered. What about Justin Hall, though? Second place for the whole entirety of this second stint. And he's coming to the checkered flag now to be a winner in the ChampCar iRacing Series, 2 hours at VIR. And I'm sure he'll be delighted with himself.
Yeah, a real solid race from him.
Second and third, though, Love did have that covered off through the roller coaster. He's going to recover for second place, but I'm sure that is heartbreaking to run out of fuel with about 2 laps to go. Require that extra pit stop. Lupfer rolls it home in third. There was a sting in the tail at the end of that race. You were right, Devin.
Yeah, you never know, but that was exciting for sure. And honestly, a real impressive effort there from Nicholas Love to get that spot back. You know, just you're really bummed out when you make fuel calculation error like that, because in this series, of course, it's all on the drivers in the car. And
11th and 12th. Carlos Corredor and Aaron Thorpe are going to battle to the checkered flag as well. These guys still got about half the lap to go. Corredor is in front of Thorpe, and I think Thorpe has also had to make a late race splash for fuel. He's on his outlap here. He's going to try and grab this spot away from Corredor, who's made 1 stop, to Aaron Thorpe's 3 stops on final lap. Aaron Thorpe also going to get a little bit of redemption, albeit a little further down the field. There's another move happening on the final lap. I think he has got a little bit of an easier job there than the fight that Love had on his hands trying to get around.
Well, I have to see. Easy to make a mistake here in Hogpen. Oh, but no mistake there.
Oh, don't speak too early. He's gone out wide onto the grass. He's lost all of his momentum. Corredor grabs it back on the way to the line. I think you jinxed him, Devin. Nonetheless, exciting final lap for Corredor and Aaron Thorpe there. Aaron Thorpe thought he could grab 11th, but in the end did overcook it on those old tyres on the way into Hogpen. And I think those were our last 2 cars to come to the checkered flag as well. So that wraps up a very interesting and varied 2 hours at VIR, going from the sunset through the night and into the morning. Here's how they finished. Your winner is Justin Hall. Nicholas Love in second. Last lap pass on Max Lupfer in third. Then it's Alex Coffard in fourth. Matthew Thompson in fifth. Sean Saputra then in sixth place. Chris Knisley in 7th, needed 2 pit stops to get home. Jay Safiniak in 8th, Scott Grinnell in 9th, and Andrew Kosick in 10th. Carlos Corredor and Aaron Thorpe in 11th and 12th. We saw that one, and, well, they gave themselves something to smile about, or maybe not, on the final lap. Alex Albert be a classified finisher in 13th place, unfortunately 2 laps down after what might have been a power outage in his neighborhood, we're led to believe. Then behind that, David Palermo is in 14th. Ernesto Carrizosa is in 15th. Paul T. Roddy in 16th. Again, a classified finisher. Javier Pinzon 17th. William Corredor in 18th. And Camilo Carrizosa in 19th. 34 laps for Christopher Flamion, and then a retirement, but he completed more than half distance and so is eligible for points and participation. And then retirement after 10 laps for Aaron Nash. Kyle Fegley did 1 lap, and Kiri Morris didn't take the start. And I think, with that kind of field, we might have been able to run out of action in 2 hours, but they kept us watching. And we'll look to grab our race winner, Justin Hall. Justin, first of all, congratulations. There was a bit of a question mark around the pit stop time for Nick Love, and in the end, he did need a splash of fuel. Did you see that one coming, or were you surprised?
Honestly, I was kind of surprised. Some of the other drivers were picking up on he may have been doing some fuel saving. I had kind of messed up my JRT software, and the auto shutoff wasn't enabled, so all I knew is that I took too much.
And tell us about the strategy for this, because obviously 2-hour race, special format, longer stints on the tires, more fuel required at the pit stop. What did it change about how you approached it?
I mean, I was trying to stay calm and collected as much as possible, following along when it made sense, just trying to stay with the leaders because it's a very long race. So just trying not to do anything too silly. The tires got very hot and very slippery towards the end of the first stint. And then the darkness, the pitch black, that was another huge factor.
Troubles for our friend Alex Albert, championship leader, and you pick up the win. Now, I know Alex has a lot of wins to his name already, but this brings you a little bit closer to the pointy end of the championship, and you've got a W next to your name.
Yeah, it feels great. Honestly, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I kind of thought it was all gone after the pit stop, and then had an incident with traffic, had all of a sudden when Nicholas Love had to pit, it was just like, oh my God, like it was just like, okay, don't mess this up. But yeah, it's awesome.
VIR, I know it's a track it's a track very near and dear to the hearts of all of us at Team Huge Ass. So to have an extra hour of racing here, a delight, or was it a bit of a chore to do a race this long?
No, I mean, it was, it definitely was still interesting because it seemed like it was always someone that I had to race basically through the entire 2 hours. I mean, it was definitely, I can tell you I'm definitely really sweaty now. But having a whole race from basically sunset to sunrise was really cool.
Well, I'm going to once again congratulate you on your first win of this season and throw the floor to you if you've got any parting words.
Thanks again to you guys, Team Huge Ass. Good luck to everyone in the racing team this weekend at VIR. Sad I can't be there, but, this COVID stuff, it's just a little bit too crazy. And, wish my girlfriend a happy birthday. And
Well, that's important. You're a lucky man to be able to do a 2-hour race on her birthday.
Yeah, she's great. What can I say?
Well, you can tell her, thank you. I won, I guess.
Yeah, she'll she definitely appreciates the present.
There you go. All right. Thank you to Justin Hall. We've got the rest of our podium who've helpfully stuck around, which is lovely of them. So we'll see if Devon can get a word with Nick Love. We'll see if he's here.
Yeah, and I think I found Nicholas Love here. Nicholas, you there?
I can see.
Oh, I heard him for just a second. He's muted again. Perhaps we'll give him a... Go ahead, Nicholas.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Seems like you might have the mute key bound to
He sounds fine to me, Devon. Carry on, please.
Okay, so Nick, you had certainly one of the most interesting races for all of us there. How did it go for you?
He did for a second there, and now we can't hear Nick Love, which is unfortunate because he was a real highlight for our race.
Well, you know what? We'll jump out of the booth and I'll see if we can troubleshoot, and then you can talk to Max Lufa.
Devon's going to go try and harangue Mr. Nicholas Love, but at the same time, I've got Max Lufa, who finished third. You were there and thereabouts all the way in the race, but in the end, third place.
Yeah, I don't know quite how to feel about that. Part of me feels lucky that something swung in my favor, and part of me feels unlucky with how some of the things turned out. Between getting into it with one of the lap down cars through the lower S's and missing a shift there on the run down the backstretch on that last lap to lose second place. It's a mixed bag of emotions for this one.
Yeah, when you look at the grand scheme of the championship, though, third place when points leader Alex Albert finished outside of the top 10 definitely compresses everyone at the top end of the field. And this brings to the end a little run we've got with the NC Miata before we move on to some races with the street stock. Is that a car that you like? Are we going to see you for some further races?
I'm definitely probably going to have to practice the street stock a lot more than I have been the Miata, but I will definitely be here for the rest of the season.
You'll be either disappointed or delighted to know that this is the only one of our 2-hour races before we go back to the 1-hour format. But, give me some idea about what's different in the 2-hour race at VIR.
With the 2-hour, it's a lot more just about making sure that physically and mentally I'm not draining myself too much throughout the race, so that come the last 15-20 minutes I'm not tired and making mistakes, and mentally I'm still there. So I have to pace myself a little bit more at the beginning to make sure that I have the mental capacity at the end to not mess up as much.
And from what we saw on the timing screen, big difference between the first couple laps of a stint and then the pace on the tires seemed to really drop off. You had the fastest lap of the race in the 2:15s. Congratulations. But most of the laps looked 2 or 3 seconds away from there. What was the tire wear and management?
Yeah, tire wear was just a complete pain in the ass. You got your couple flyers right at the beginning, and then they just dropped off a cliff to over a second and a half back what their optimal is. And then from there, they just kept on falling. And by the end of a stint, you're struggling to barely make a sub 220 lap. So it took a lot of work trying to keep the front end from sliding out too much. And I was slightly afraid of the undercut that was going to happen from both Nicholas and Cawford, who pitted us slightly early. I was afraid that their 2 quick laps that they'd get on the fresh tires would kind of jump them ahead of me by too much, but it seemed to reel itself back in towards the end.
And last lap battle there between you and Nick Love as he had to make that splash and dash. What's going through your mind too wide on the final lap down the back straight towards roller coaster?
I missed a shift coming out of Oak Tree, and I kind of knew that was it, but I watched him in the mirror. I tried blocking him over as much as I could, but I still like to play fair, so I left him some room on the inside, hoping that maybe I could make it, a drag race down into the braking zone. And I did to some extent, but being on the outside going into the first corner of roller coaster is never really going to work out for getting that position. So good job to Nicholas for being there at the end and being able to pounce on my mistake.
Well, after all of that, you still stand on the podium, get some good points, and I do believe puts you one race closer to meeting the participation requirement that would see you maybe randomly drawn for a free entry in the ChampCar Endurance Series.
Yep, that's always a hope. I've missed 2 races so far. One just at the beginning of the season because I couldn't make it, and another one for family vacation. So I've used up 2 of my drop weeks, hoping that'll be it, and can use some of the 2 remaining drop weeks for some actual bad finishes.
Well, next race is in about a month at Indianapolis, and we hope to see you there.
You will. I'm looking forward to it.
Delightful was Max Lupfer there. Devin, have you been able to mic up Nick Love so we can have a chat?
I believe so. So Nick, you had perhaps the most exciting race of anyone out there today. It looked like in the first half of the race before the pit stop there, you were kind of following along behind the leaders. What was your thought process there?
Yeah, I knew those guys. They're fast. They're always fast. So I figured I'd just kind of hang out with them, stay in the back, try to draft, and then try to take maybe a gallon less fuel, and maybe try to undercut them that way.
And of course, we noticed that your stop was a fair bit shorter, almost 9 seconds shorter than the other guys at the front. But of course, you had to take another one near the end there.
Yeah, I forgot to turn on my crew chief, so I was really just kind of spitballing how much fuel to take to begin with. And then it started getting close there, and I realized it just wasn't going to work. I'd have to take another gallon. So I was just glad I could race with Max at the end there and have something to shoot for.
Notice that you and Sean Saputra, a teammate of Love Racing there, were pretty close together. Was there a thought that maybe you guys could do some drafting to save fuel?
Yeah, that was a last-second thought there. I should have started the fuel-saving mode about 15 laps earlier, but I was having too much fun racing.
That's easy to do for sure here at VIR. A lot of fun to drive around. Have you spent a lot of time at VIR? I know that you do all the track guides, but did any of your practice laps involve racing in the dark?
Yeah, so we actually did the real VIR 24-hour, the last 2 of them. It was funny because my last stint at VIR started in the dark and it ended as the sun was coming up. So it was really cool here in the sim to see that.
You got to enjoy it. We were just saying on the broadcast that that's the primo stint. You should charge a premium for that one if you're renting it.
Yeah, it's the benefit of being the car owner.
Yeah. No, great race, man. And at the end there, when you came out of the pits, did you think that you had anything from Max?
I saw him at the beginning of the race, and he was fast. He was definitely faster than I was on those fresh tires. So I came out. I think I was 2 seconds behind, and I didn't really think I had anything. But when I saw him miss that shift, and he was just slowed way down, I knew I had a chance there.
Well, great job out there, man, and a great recovery from that little error in the pit stops. But a great race overall.
All right, thanks, guys.
Anyone you'd like to shout out today?
I know my girlfriend was watching. Kendall, appreciate it.
Is it birthday too?
Had to work hard for that one.
We had another shout out to a girlfriend today. Is it Kendall's birthday?
Ooh, not for a few months, but
You could dedicate this win to her in a few months. Great job, man. Well, thank you very much.
Here we go. Our podium finishes in order. Justin Hall, your winner. Nick Love scraping second back on the final lap, and Max Lupfer rounding out the podium with third place. It's great to have yet more of that endurance aspect to this series that is still a solo driver event. Lots of strategy, plenty of wheel-to-wheel racing, and we do it all again in a month's time. We take the street stock to the Indianapolis road course. I feel maybe a little bit like some Xfinity racing there. Who knows? That'll be a good one to watch because the street stock is also a very, very exciting vehicle. And we see how the championship goes for our main competitors and also those just trying to make sure that they rack up the finishes and get themselves closer to the prize. A free entry into a ChampCar Endurance Series race. I've been David Haynes. It's been Devin Peters with me, our producer Michael Derby, tireless with the pictures and the graphics and keeping you abreast of all of the action. So from HJBC, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again for all of the remaining rounds of the ChampCar iRacing series in 2020. Look forward to seeing you then. Good night.